Hi, this is Seth David from the world-famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated, bringing to you another special screencast. This time we're talking about what do I do if my customer pays my vendor. Now you might be listening wondering, what's he talking about? What do you mean customer pays my vendor? Very simply put, and the easiest example I can use to illustrate this is a lot of times, especially with smaller businesses, we're working in an environment where a lot of the same people deal with one another. And I've seen this happen where maybe one company owes a substantial amount of money to one of their vendors, and their vendor, as an inducement, or for that matter, as a what I'm trying to get at is they may insist that in order to provide services to a company going forward, they may insist that you have your customer pay them directly. And it may be that they already have a relationship with this customer. This way they can be assured that they get paid, that you don't collect the money from your own customer and then go spending it before you're able to pay them what they're owed. So in translation, what it means is my customer has to write a check directly to the vendor. Now I'm going to use a simple example because my purpose here is really just to illustrate what you do in QuickBooks, because that's the question I get asked. In fact, somebody just asked me yesterday, how do I account for this? My customer just paid my vendor directly. That was just one example of a reason why. There could be any number of reasons why this might happen. So in any case, we want to be able to account for this in QuickBooks. Well, essentially what I need to do, and I've got two reports up here. One shows my open invoices, one shows my unpaid bills. So let's say Always Right Incorporated owes me $15,000, but I owe $10,000 to IOU Incorporated. So Always Right is going to pay IOU Incorporated the $10,000 directly, and then they're going to send me a check for my $5,000. So how do I deal with this in QuickBooks? That's a good question, because I'm not actually receiving a check, but at the same time, what I needed to accomplish in QuickBooks is what happened in the real world. So that's the first question always ask yourself. What happened in the real world? So that once I think that way, then I can think in terms of how to translate that in QuickBooks terms. So what happened in the real world was Always Right Incorporated sent a check to IOU for $10,000 to pay off their balance. They did it on my behalf. Well, what that means in QuickBooks is I need to knock what Always Right Incorporated owes me down by $10,000, and I need to show that IOU Incorporated has now been paid. That's putting it into very generic terms. In more specific terms, I have to apply a $10,000 payment against what Always Right Incorporated owes me, and at the same time I have to apply that same $10,000 in credit to knock off this bill that I owe to IOU Incorporated. So the simple answer is it's a journal entry, but we run into a challenge here, which if anybody of you who are watching have used QuickBooks, you know by now, if you've played around with it much, that QuickBooks will not allow you to post to more than one accounts receivable and or accounts payable account in the same transaction. So normally what I would do is I would say, well, we need to get rid of a receivable, which is an asset. We do that by crediting the assets. So initially I would try this. I would say, let's credit accounts receivable by $10,000, right? And we need to apply that to Always Right Incorporated. And then let's debit accounts payable for $10,000, and that goes to write off what I owe to IOU Incorporated. This would be the perfect way to do it. However, as you're going to see in a second, when I click Save and Close, QuickBooks is going to yell at me and say you can't do that. It says you cannot use more than one AR or AP account in the same transaction. The reason is, I suspect, that it's just too dynamic, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can really hang yourself up if you do this wrong. So how do we get around this? I get around this by using a clearing account. Basically what that means is I've got to split this up into two separate entries. So what I do is first, let's deal with the receivables part first, right? So instead of posting to accounts payable, I post it to a clearing account. And I can just call it clearing. When I hit my tab key, it's going to ask me to set it up. And we'll set that up as an other current asset. And of course, I want a detailed memo here explaining exactly what I'm doing because somebody else looking at this may not know. So we write out a detailed memo. Always Right Inc. Paid IOU Inc. $10,000 on my behalf. Copy and paste that down. And I can even I can put the name against the clearing account. I don't need to. It doesn't really serve a whole lot of purpose there. The important thing is that the right name gets associated with the accounts receivable. So what am I going to do now? I'm going to hit Save and New. Watch what happens to my accounts receivable once I refresh the report. Sure enough, it shows the $10,000. We'll go in and apply that to the invoice in a minute. But first, let's deal now with the other side, IOU side. So now IOU, we need to get rid of a $10,000 payable. A payable is a credit balance. It gets we get rid of it with a debit. So $10,000 to accounts payable. Not enough zeros. Accounts payable. This time, of course, the name has to be associated with the accounts payable. I go to IOU Incorporated. And now this comes out of the clearing account. Remember, in this entry, we actually debited the clearing account. Now we're crediting the clearing account so that it will zero out. And again, I actually I don't have my memo on the clipboard anymore. So again, we write a nice detailed memo. Always write Incorporated, paid IOU $10,000 on my behalf. Copy and paste that down. Save and close. So now we can see by our reports that our credits are applied, but ideally I want this off completely and I want this credit applied. So now we'll just go one step further and let's deal with the payable first. I go to vendors and I go to pay bills. Oh, and I don't have a bank account set up on these sample books yet, so let's create that real quick. iBank. So now it brings up my payables. Truth is, I didn't need a bank account because I don't have to actually pay this. What I do need to do is select it as a bill to be paid, and then notice down here, I've now got a credit because of the journal entry I posted. I choose Set Credits. It gives me this dialog here, and it selects it automatically because it recognizes by the amount that it's a match. And I click Done, and I click Pay Selected Bills. Obviously, there's no actual bill to be paid. And I get this dialog. I say I'm done. Notice now unpaid bills shows nothing. Here, I don't need to see this detail in my open invoices report. So same concept applied, only now it's on the customer side. So I go to customers and receive payments. And I don't want to do this now. Always Right. Now let's say at this point I've gotten the check from Always Right for the balance. They owe me $5,000. Might as well just tackle that all in one situation. Let's just say they paid me by check number 1234. So here's what we've got. Notice the payment's only $5,000, but it's still showing $15,000 due. I've got available credits here of $10,000. I choose discounts and credits. Again, it recognizes that it's a match based on the amount. I click Done. Notice what it does here now. It shows me I've got an original amount of $15,000, credits of $10,000, and actual payment received of $5,000. Save and close. Notice my receivables are now gone. And of course, I go to banking, make deposits. The $5,000 is sitting in my payments to deposit or undeposited funds. I click OK. I record my deposit, save and close, and I am home free. That, my friends, is how you deal with third-party payments, or what to do when your customer pays your vendor. As always, if you have any questions, my email is seth@nerdenterprises.com. Visit my website at www.nerdenterprises.com. If you're not watching this there, visit my YouTube channel at youtube.com/nerdenterprises. And as always, if you'd like additional training on this or any other topic you see me cover, please feel free to call me at 866-945-8070. I can log in remotely with you by sending you a link and having you share your screen with me. It's like I'm standing right behind you looking at your QuickBooks screen and coaching you on how to do the things you need to learn how to do better or at all in QuickBooks. So visit me on the web or give me a call or send me an email or post a comment wherever you see this video. Please, I invite your comments. Please post your comments and questions. I'll give you free help and information right here on YouTube if it's practical enough to do so. So post them here. We'd love to get your comments on YouTube or on my blog, wherever it is that you happen to be watching this. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I do look forward to seeing you on the web.